Reggie here, your friendly neighborhood bodybuilder and comic book collector, and I want to welcome you to another one of my videos. It is possibly an understatement, the biggest understatement of the year to say that comics are exploding right now. And I say that because we are seeing a tremendous amount of activity with creator-owned properties. Every single week, there seems to be something that is happening out there in the world related to creator-owned comics. And in addition to that, we are seeing a lot of excitement and a lot of explosive growth when it comes to indie publishers as well. And almost every week, there seems to be a new Kickstarter program that is kicking off. And recently, we've even started to see Substack take notice. And so what I want to do in this video is to actually have two guests on, two folks from the industry join me to maybe make sense of some of the things that are happening out there in the world as it relates to creator-owned properties, independent publishers, and more. And this conversation was really facilitated by my friends over at Go Collect, who gave me an opportunity to talk with these two individuals, and I am very thankful for them. And if you haven't checked out Go Collect, I definitely encourage you to do so. The #1 pricing guide for comics. With that said, I'm actually going to welcome to the show my very first guest, Matthew. It is good to see you. Matthew,
good to see you too, Reggie.
If I am correct here, you are, and I want to get this right, you are an artist, designer, and co-founder of Wicked Monkey. Is that correct?
That's correct. Most recently, the Wicked Monkey. I've designed furniture, painted artwork, everything. We've had a great time.
So there may be some people out there, Matthew, that may not know what Wicked Monkey is. Can you give us the elevator pitch as to what Wicked Monkey is and the role that it plays in the market?
Where we started was really from a place of wanting to broaden individuals' perspective on indie comics. But we felt part of the way to get to them was maintain a connection to the mainstreams, the DCs, the Marvels. But instead of really providing them the raw books that you get typically from the local comic shop every day, which I love, it's providing them with an investment opportunity that it's really become this market that continues to grow. But part of the intrigue and the interest, the wonderful piece of it is the love for the stories and getting to know these characters. So Wicked Monkey wanted to give people access to the independent comics, the mainstream comics, build and grow this community based on a place to start investing, but giving us the platform for promoting artists.
So is Wicked Monkey a comic book publisher? Is it a bookstore? Like what specifically is it?
We maintain the backstock and current going forward graded comics, all CGC graded. Where we hope to take it, though, is building that investment and that love for the books and broadening it to oddities and other things that become collectible and attach us to the artists, the creators, the individuals who are actually creating these new worlds for us to enjoy and become part of.
There we go. That is actually very helpful. So one of the things that I teed up in that very brief introduction that I gave was around this idea of Kickstarter, right? We have heard a lot about Kickstarter, and I'm curious from the investment standpoint, from the standpoint of supporting creators and artists, does Kickstarter play a role in what Wicked Monkey is attempting to do in the market?
It's kind of setting a water level mark for people's appetite for investing into new and unknown creatives, which is what we really want to do. We want to have these graded books and be able to put them on our website promoting these artists and these writers. Well, part of that is them being able to get their work out. So seeing Kickstarter raising an additional $6 million over the last year to a total of $20 million, I think in 2020, just for their comic book section. It really showed that desire for individuals to want to pick up all these new books, follow these new artists, become immersed in new worlds. So I think that's the excitement that we got from it and wanted to be a part of it. And I want to see those creator-owned projects go forward, whether it's a publisher or like our friends at Stranger Comics and other places who have been able to become a much stronger publication company in themselves and see where that growth can take us. Because it's hard to finally get that money directed to where you want it sometimes. But when the money goes, that's when we get to see growth in certain areas that maybe we hadn't before.
You actually stole my statistic there, because that was one of the things I was going to talk about. I mean, because you cannot argue with the success of Kickstarter. $20 million
Yeah,
with comic book related properties in 2020. That is an impressive number. And I think Kickstarter, with again these comic properties, are off to a fast start this year as well. I want to say that I saw some numbers
yeah,
that you just kind of dangled out there, that it was about 6 million that has been raised already this year. That is some undeniable success. But to that point,
truly.
what do you think the success with comic book related Kickstarter campaigns, what does that really mean for creators and even for consumers?
I think that's an excellent question. That's one I've been actually trying to answer myself. And looking at certain titles like Stake or certain other ones that have been picked up by then Source Point Press or um, Vault, you see the publishers coming now to the marketplace to find the individuals, but then you also have companies like Boom who launched their own Kickstarters for Berserker hardcover books
Yeah.
and raised over $1 million. I mean, I think it's just a really interesting kinetic. It's hard to see where it's going to go, but I just really enjoy it and love seeing the new pieces. I've also seen a couple options being thrown out there for certain titles that were initially on Kickstarters. So I I see that as a great launching place for them. I'm interested to see though what happens with publishers down the road if they continue to use this as a platform to maybe release a riskier title.
Mhm.
So, you know, let's just say that I have a title I'm not sure how well it's going to do in the marketplace, but I really want to give this guy a chance. Well, I can rely on Kickstarter then to kind of get it out for me and still put it under my publication title. So avenues like that, I think I would love to see open up, just give more options to everyone.
What's crazy is that I had an opportunity to interview Ross Ritchie, and he and I go back and forth on Instagram all the time. And he made a comment once about the fact that if he could do it all over again, he would probably use Kickstarter to fund Boom
Oh,
just
wow.
in general. Like he would just
Just in
integrate it as part of it. And I think that that's
why
because
not?
he believes in the success of the Kickstarter initiative, the crowdfunding, crowdsourcing. You seem to be a little surprised by that. So I want to pause for a second to hear what your thoughts might be about Ross Ritchie thinking that Kickstarter could be a really viable way for a publisher to go.
No, I think it's a fantastic way to go. And I think he's spot on. It's a grassroots movement. And when you, part of the questions always coming out later on too is okay, what comes when you even get to options for TV? When it comes to comic books, are publishers trying to push out a quick 6 issues just so they can get the option later? Or does it really matter to the comic book community whether or not that title should actually be on television or in a movie? So I think by establishing this organic ground roots, you're building the support that can push any title a lot further, possibly down the road, than just by some publisher 6 issues down the road under the rug. In 6 months from now, I've never heard of it again. So I like that idea. I like that community and gathering people behind a certain story or
No,
vision.
and again, I think that Ross Ritchie and Boom Studios, what they did with Berserker
Yeah.
was really a great move. But getting back to one of your earlier points, are you starting to see, and I have to ask the question because I honestly don't know, are you starting to see the trend of creator owned properties starting on Kickstarter, getting that groundswell of interest and activity, raising some money, coming out with a couple of issues? Are you then seeing them transition to a publisher of some sort, or are you seeing more of them just continue to do more Kickstarter campaigns one after the other, or is it just a mixed bag?
A mixed bag, but I think we're generally going to side with they're going to continue this same blueprint. They're going to continue going back to Kickstarter, releasing the first issue, releasing the second issue. It's a no-brainer. It's working for them. On occasion, there's a couple titles that have been picked up then by publishers, or you have publishers like Scout, who are creator owned properties. So we can see a little bit of crossover, but I really think people are finding so much success in the Kickstarter realm that why when I can have control the way I wanted things to appear. I mean, had a lot of friends with great success.
Yep. And I think with that success, that breeds more interest, and that
Yes.
causes more creators to start to look at Kickstarter and other crowdfunding type of platforms as a viable way to bring their creations to life. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I definitely agree with that. And bringing them to life, but also they're fully committed. These artists are committing themselves like you wouldn't believe. Friends at Stranger Comics, the things that they tell me they have to do to get Kickstarters ready and what they want to provide each individual. Just, I mean, the bonuses and everything and leveling up, but it's wonderful. But I can see how much work and how involved it really is. It's definitely something they've really committed themselves to. It's not something people are just throwing together. So I appreciate that from them.
In your mind, the leveling up and some of the added things that these creators are putting out there for these campaigns, do you think that that is what contributes to a successful Kickstarter program, right? Is it just, hey, I've got this really great comic that I want to come out with a really interesting character, combined with, if you pay this amount, you get this. And if you pay this amount, you get this other thing, right? Like I've seen some creator
Yeah.
owned projects that are like, if you spend enough money, you might actually be in the comic.
You
Like
might
that's
get
now,
your name in it.
now who, no. In one camp project, they were like, we will draw you into a comic. Now that's really awesome and enticing because I want to be in a comic. I almost pulled the
Yeah.
trigger. But talk to me about the different exclusives and the different packages that these creators are putting together and how that again might contribute to a successful Kickstarter campaign.
Yeah, I definitely think the gimmick, I'm going to call them gimmicks, but they're not really gimmicks. It's these exclusive prints and variants and stuff that they become your investment. So this is what you're giving back to the individual that has put their money into your creation, your world that you've been able to share with everyone. So their part they're taking is now I've got a 1 in 50 exclusive of this cover off of the Kickstarter. So yeah, I think it's important to have those, but it all falls apart because you can have one great issue come out, but if you don't create that world and start to lay that foundation that really draws people in, your next Kickstarter is not going to be able to generate what you were on the first one, regardless of what ratios and things you're kind of metal covers, whatever it is that you're going to be throwing out there. The art's still going to speak for itself. It still has to be there, and the content, which I've seen from a quite a few, have been definitely putting out the work that's warrants coming back to Kickstarter and wanting to invest. And what I'd also like to see from Kickstarter too is, on occasions, you start to see the relationships with local comic book shops and these individual Kickstarters, because that's the only disconnect we're having right now. Is I want to be able to carry this book in my local comic shop, but how do I do it when it's on a Kickstarter? I want to putting together the retail packages that kind of work that way, because it's just another avenue for them to explore, grow, establish roots in different communities around the world.
That was a super helpful response. So thank you for that one.
No,
No, it was a fantastic response. But one of the things that you kind of talked about earlier was indie comics, and you talked about graded indie comics. One of the things that I'm thinking about is, while we have seen more indie comics get graded, I
yeah,
don't know that we've seen an influx, if you will, of Kickstarter related comics being graded. Do you
right.
think that that is a trend that we might see in the future? Because to your point, they're putting out some good content. So do you think that we might see Kickstarter comics eventually start to get graded?
I think we started to cross the threshold now with last year Kickstarter hitting over 20 million. I think there had to be a point where the scales begin to tip, and there's enough content out there. It's been in the marketplace long enough. People, it's all about scarcity, supply and demand. Now that things are coming around, it always takes, you need that year for that material to sit there. And now they've really started to put the funds behind it. And I think it's coming down the road, definitely.
That's helpful. And then to that point, do you think that we might also see, whether raw or graded, some of these comics that were made available via Kickstarter actually being resold on the secondary market? Because they'll either be resold as raw comics, because to the point, scarcity and rarity, or graded and then ultimately sold. So do you think that we're going to start to also see secondary sales as well?
Yeah, and I think we already have. There are definitely a few titles, especially with Stranger Comics. They have a few titles that hit the resale market and have done fantastic. There are definitely, depending on as far as other titles, they're the artist of the work, metal variants. You're starting to see it as well. I don't have enough. I just don't think there's enough data for me at the moment, but I definitely see it moving, and I see the trend. So that's why I'd love to see it continue that way.
And so again, it'll be super interesting to see. I mean, if Kickstarter programs are continuing to be successful, I think that it only makes sense that we start to see some of these books appear on the secondary market. We start to see more and more of them being graded and then sold. It'll be very interesting to see how this all plays out. You brought up Stranger Comics a second ago.
Yes,
I think that there is a relationship of some form between Wicked Monkey and Stranger Comics. Can you talk a little bit about that relationship in advance of us bringing on our next guest, who is affiliated with Stranger Comics?
Yeah, no, it's been a huge pleasure, and just some people you meet in life, they open up your eyes to different worlds, and getting to know the guys over at Stranger Comics, they kind of really opened us up into the whole idea of world building and the artistry that goes behind not only the artwork, but the writing and the ethics and the work ethic behind putting out all this amazing work, and how you have to really, open yourself up to the world. And it's kind of like you're showing people different aspects of yourself that you may not in a different way. I was able to build a great relationship with the founder and a lot of the guys over at Stranger Comics, and it's not often that I get such great connections with different people. So we built everything off of that and just had great time discussing comics and everything else from there.
There you go. All right. So to that point, I actually want to welcome my next guest to the show. And I want to get this right. I want to look at my notes because I want to get this right. We are welcoming author, actor, and president of Stranger Comics, Sebastian. Welcome to the show, my friend. And you, sir, are on mute. So let's unmute you. Let's try that one more time. Sebastian, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much for having me. 2 times.
That is one of the dangers of being in the background there. So I definitely apologize for that. I went a little long with Matt. He was giving me some solid answers to some things, and I went a little long over there. I was intrigued. So Sebastian, you were able to hear my conversation with Matt, and I'm curious whether you have some additional thoughts on the benefits that Kickstarter offers publishers, considering that you are the president of a publisher. What are your thoughts there on the benefits of Kickstarter?
Well, actually, I had you on mute as well, so I didn't hear any of it. No. So, yeah.
Hold on, my heart sank. I was like, no.
No, thanks so much for having me too. I really appreciate it. Yeah, we started Stranger Comics back in 2008 or 9 or something, and we had started with our first issue, The Untamed, around about then. And then wasn't until 2015 where we launched our first Kickstarter for this book right here. Look, I came all prepared.
No.
This book right here, the Untamed, The Sinner's Prayer. And, I hadn't a clue what I was doing, but so I asked a bunch of smarter people. But what I did know what we had was something special. And we'd built up a little bit of a fan base doing conventions and those types of things. And so we had a target goal of around 12,500 to print up these hardcovers. And of course, our hardcovers for the Kickstarter, they go to the extra length of, doing reversible dust jackets and shiny foils and all the extra bells and whistles that Kickstarter allows a fan that wants to get the collector version first. And maybe they can only get it via Kickstarter or a convention. So it really created that FOMO, that exclusivity. Mm-hmm. So we had massive success with that. And from there, we then parlayed that into further Kickstarters for our other titles. And I believe Matt was saying it earlier, one of the riskier titles, we did a Christmas comedy. Like the majority of the stuff that we do has been dark fantasy. We're in development at HBO, with the fantasy world. And so everyone kind of knows us for this kind of cerebral, up my own arse kind of dark fantasy, slightly, pleased with myself kind of way I write, very, very melodramatic. So I wanted to show another side. So then I did this Ruining Christmas, and you had mentioned, Regie, you wanted to be on the cover of something. So I thought I'd bring it full circle. We allowed one of our backers to get to be one of these 8-bit characters.
That's cool.
On the cover of Ruining Christmas, the Mario Kart homage. So we do that. Also gives us opportunity to kind of embrace that fun side, the collectory side, the homage side. For the last one, and we've had like our Tribe Called Quest homage.
There you go. Can't go wrong with rap references, my friend.
Yes,
I mean you're covering the spectrum. You have Christmas, you have Biggie Smalls, Ready to Die, Tribe Called Quest, DMX, Mario Kart,
and this is for the next one, the one that's dropping on the 28th. Everyone that comes to our party, including you, Regie, comes to our party. Just for joining, we'll give you this for free. That's so cool. Then you get the collector editions as well if you want the sets, the metals, and the thises and the that. So before I ramble.
So to that point though, you gave me a lot there in that response.
Sure.
I'm curious to your point though, the point that you were making there. Do you think part of the appeal of working as a fan, like participating in Kickstarter, is some of what you just went through, the exclusivity, the things that you cannot get any other way? Is that part of the appeal for somebody like me to support a campaign that you're doing? Is that part of it?
I think, you're spot on. I think it's a huge part of it. I think the other part of it too, it's kind of like your own mini convention, right? So when you go to a convention, at least when I go to a convention, when I see someone, and whether they're indie or they're a big name, but especially if they're indie, and I just don't know them, it gives me an opportunity to see their spirit and their personality and who they are. So usually when I back a campaign, I'm more backing the person and the effort and the intention behind the spirit of the work that they're trying to put out. Like, oh snap, I you know what, I might throw down some dollars on this guy, gal, or they just because I believe in what they're following, their dreams, and they're putting this effort in. I'd like to do the same. And it definitely, on the collectory side, or for folks who are speculators, it doesn't hurt that this opportunity is there, that collector aspect of myself is also being nurtured as well. So it's a bit of both.
There we go.
That's the beauty of Kickstarter. Is I backed, I think, about 200 myself, and most of them are just because I'm like, you know what, I know exactly how much effort it takes to create something, and this person's doing their damnedest. I'm gonna support. So Matt,
you didn't happen to meet Sebastian at a con, did you? Because he seems to really enjoy connecting with people at cons. Is that how you guys met?
Actually, no. I think Sebastian loves to do his Thursday night little sit downs
tonight
and tonight and every Thursday night. And I don't know. There was a cover. Jay Lee did a cover for one of their books, and I fell in love with it. So I decided to turn it into their Instagram live stream, and immediately just connected with Sebastian on the other end. Even though he was talking to everyone, I felt it's just the way he was able to express himself. I felt I connected with him on some level. So I then reached out to him afterwards. Being in the time of COVID, I mean, everything was live streamed or Zoom call or you name it. So that's how just coming to terms to where we were at that time.
There we go. There we go. So Sebastian, back to you. I am curious. You brought up collectory. I'd never heard that term before, so that's a new thing for my lexicon. Collectory. Thank you, sir. I am interested in hearing your thoughts on this. With the different things that Matt kind of spoke about, the different things that you spoke about that are being offered as part of Kickstarter.
Right.
These more successful programs, these more exclusive type of things that you can only potentially get. Are you personally seeing an influx of not just collectors buying these things, but also speculators as well that are potentially betting, if you will, on the talent of the creators that are behind these projects?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, there are a lot of speculators that do pop on, that have found us, like, for example, with the HBO announcement, they hear about it. Or even before this, back in 2015, they heard about the Niobe comic that we did. Because I had an actress co-write the Niobe comic. And so suddenly you hear, oh, there's a hint of Hollywood and there can be. So let me throw some dollars that way, and it's just like anything, you're an investment, like publishing or buying real estate of sorts. It is that investment that you hope increases over time, and then you're hedging your bets, like, oh, because it's got these attachments and it's got this X factor. Niobe at the time when we did the Niobe Shears Life book, we didn't even realize at the time, Regie, this is this cover here. So this is the one that we did with Amanda Stenberg, and we got Hyung, the lead designer for The Last of Us, who was an old friend, to do the cover. But the insides were done by Ashley A. Woods. And this became the first nationally distributed comic book with a Black female author, artist, and hero in the history of entertainment. And so suddenly we had worldwide press on this comic. And so suddenly we had this influx of speculators, collectors, and Matt touched on this earlier, and I think it's it's such a good point, is a speculator or a collector might come just for the investment, but if they also can then fall in love with the story, does the story and hopefully they fall in love with the creator, we create that kind of organic relationship. And so then it's like, okay, my hobby becomes my passion, and I'm supporting not just for my pocket, but because there's now this fellowship, this tribe that I feel like we're part of a family, and we're now part of the stranger movement. We are now supporting something bigger than just a singularity of comic, singularity of purpose of pocketbook. We are now feeling like we're part of the tribe, we're part of the fellowship, and Kickstarter has been a wonderful window into that.
Matt, I see you nodding up there as Sebastian is talking, which is very easy to do because that accent is wonderful, man. I wish I had one of those.
Orange County. I've been living in Orange County.
But Matt, what would you like to add to the comments that we just heard from Sebastian a few seconds ago? Because he is leveraging some of the points that you just made about the world building, about supporting these creators, about being part of the success. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, no, I think that's what especially drew me into Sebastian and Stranger Comics was the Stranger family, just the whole community that they've been able to establish, whether it's watching the Instagram lives on Thursday night or attending the Stranger Cons on Zoom or YouTube live. Those types of things it just takes everything to the next level. Okay, I've invested because I'm speculating on comics, and yes, I've put some money towards this because I enjoy the story. But then now I'm part of this community, okay, and everything else that it means. So it's just like you're getting leveled up each time. And then those are the types I can't replace that experience with, money and doing other things. So I think that's the added bonus.
Sebastian, one of the things that we oftentimes hear about in the comic book community is people frown upon speculators.
Right.
And I personally don't think speculators are bad. I think that some collectors and readers are also speculators. It's not like this group of people that is just out there that all they do is speculate. But even if there were, I don't necessarily think that that's a bad thing, because they are still lending their support to allow creators and publishers to bring to life these projects that they've always wanted to bring to life.
Yes.
What are your thoughts there on this idea that speculators are bad people?
It's ridiculous. I mean, it's absolutely.
Don't hold back. Okay?
Yeah, no, it's so bonkers to me. You know, people are people, so you're going to have crappy people that are speculators and wonderful people that are speculators, and you know, it's just. So I think you just get that kind of that spectrum across the board, you know. But you know, the speculators, I give them maximum, you know, props and thanks for, you know, helping support folks, you know, through tough times like the pandemics and these types of things that are speculating, you know. So I fully appreciate it. So when I create these comics, you know, I never had even the foresight of going like, oh, you know, I'm gonna create these comics so that one day maybe I'll have collectors and speculators. I'm just here wanting to tell a story that hopefully resonates. But along the way, learning, you have reader collectors, speculators, and sometimes just speculators that hopefully I can make readers. But yeah, it's. I just think it's just as simple as that. There are speculators who, at times, the rap has been, because now and again people have bugged me like, oh, that HBO thing, is that ever going to happen? I'm like, hopefully. You know, yeah, fingers crossed. You know, I mean, that there might be an unrealistic knowledge of how long things take to get made. So if you're a collector or a speculator and you've seen an announcement and you rush to the comic shop, or you've gone online to an online retailer and gone, I'm going to stack up on all these issues. And a year goes by, and then 2 years go by, and 5 years goes by, and then you're potentially frustrated with the market or the money you've spent or who sold you the book. Do you trust them or believe, and so on and so forth. That you have to remember that this is an investment, but it is a risk investment. And I know tons of projects now that I'm in Hollywood, I guess, that have been in development for 10 years and that came out. And oh, wait a minute, that came out. They might not realize it's been in development for so long. So I'm a very aggressive salesman, but I'd always exercise caution or patience and understanding for any investment that you're going into, whether it's comics or anything else. Just understand an option doesn't necessarily mean the immediate or the long term.
Yeah.
But it might mean a quick flip for someone who's also eager. So when we try and price our comics, is that they are affordable for a collector speculator who then might want to flip. That's not my business model at all. My business model is make decent money with collectors, absolutely, but make it affordable so they have opportunities to make as well. I mean, that's critical.
There you go. And again, just another solid answer from both of you guys. So I definitely appreciate that. I think I know the answer to this next question, right? And the question is, given the success that you've had with Kickstarter crowdfunding type of programs, is Kickstarter going to be part of the long-term plan for Stranger Comics? Is that just like baked into the plan for what you are trying to do for the future?
Absolutely. I mean, it's been wonderful. I think there was a bit of a knock on it. I worked with another celebrity on a kid's book, and there was a bit of a concern of how this asking for money, right? And I think that stigma is gone now that you have, you know, Keanu Reeves, and you've got Spike Lee and De La Soul. You've got a lot of different heavy hitters coming. That literally all you're doing is pre-selling something that's exclusive. So you're creating more market awareness. So somebody might come to the Kickstarter that's never picked up or has no clue about Stranger Comics or Niobe or any of the stuff. And then because they fall in love with it, then they go and support their local comic shop with going, oh, do you have all the rest of the Niobe stuff or X, Y, and Z? And the other thing with the Kickstarter has been wonderful is with some folks in the community, like one of my dear friends is Brian Polito, who's my booth neighbor at San Diego Comic Con. His success on Lady Death is bonkers. It's absolutely beyond.
Yes, it is.
And he's always extremely kind to do, when we have a Kickstarter, he promotes us. So to his fans, suddenly I get his fans coming over, and I've always done the same for him, guys who have got either much bigger followings or much smaller followings, because I think that's often the concern, I think, in the zeitgeist at times with folks, is this self kind of like, this isn't pie, just because you're giving someone an opportunity to like, oh, I bought an Niobe comic, now I can't buy this Spider, you know, like you have the opportunity to share knowledge and with folks that might just like it, you know.
Yep.
It's just, yeah.
That was actually one of the things that we saw Ross Ritchie do with his success with Berserker. He actually gave money back to some other Kickstarter programs, and I thought that was just well done. So I'm hearing this idea of people kind of supporting one another, which I think is wonderful, because it is not a pie that has a fixed amount of slices to it, right? I mean, there are a lot of people out there on a lot of really wonderful content that is continuing to come out from the publishers and from the individual creators themselves. So one of the last questions as I get ready to wrap up here, Sebastian, I'm going to go to you first, is how does one go about finding out about your Kickstarter campaigns? Because there's a lot of them, right? There's a lot of them that are out there. How do people find when you have a Kickstarter to actually roll out?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I mean, for us, it's been newsletters, email databases, social media, of course, spending money on Facebook advertising, reaching out to other folks that if I've given love before, they give love back, and so on. So it really becomes this community thing, and building. Mm-hmm. So for folks for finding us, and I was going to show you something too, because I know Matt's going to freak about this. This is on our next Kickstarter campaign. This is so you guys can see, right? This is, so David Mack's done a cover for our Kickstarter. So he's done this image of Soleil West, the young model. And I picked it up from David. And Dave, this is what we do also, and I bring this up. We also create opportunities that early bird backers is the only opportunity to get the new David Mack cover. So then it creates this fear of missing out to make sure you back on the first day. Now, what's crazy is this image actually has two images. It has this as well on it. That's me. This was I had no clue David was going to use my HBO announcement photos. I look like a douchebag. I'm on my own cover, but anyway. So this is, you guys get to see it.
Are those watercolors?
These are beautiful watercolors.
Yeah.
Those are really well done.
And it also, just to show you, this was Jay Lee's Ruining Christmas original inks from the last Kickstarter. And then for the new one, just drive Matt crazy. Here is the new Jay Lee cover for the Untamed.
Wow.
And these are the originals. And then this one right here. This is fun for fans. And this is what we also talk about, Reg, as far as building the community, is it's also within the story. So within this new story, Niobe gets to meet her brother for the first time. And I introduced this character back in 2009, and no one had a clue that they were actually related. So then for fans who have backed the Kickstarter since the jump off, they go, wait a minute. They get exactly. It's just you know. So that's what we try and do. Is we try and do that mini Marvel of fantasy where you have a universe that you're on my budget slowly rolling it out. You know.
So let's be clear about that. What you're saying is that not everyone is going to get one of those wonderful covers. They're getting a shot and an opportunity at getting one of those covers. Is that what I'm hearing? Or are they getting a print?
Those are the original paint watercolors. So you can get the art print where David actually melded both Niobe and the Stranger on the same image. but the comic exclusive, David Mack exclusive, is going to be part of what we call an early bird. So within the first 48 hours, we create an opportunity for a reward where people go, oh my goodness, I must get that David Mack, plus all these other goodies on this early bird reward. And what Kickstarter's done, you know, and I know you've got to wrap it up, but it's really very, very cool, is in the past, you almost had to just pick a reward tier and then try and figure out how to add on other things. Well, I wanted this and this. What they've now done is given you an opportunity to collect a certain early bird rewards. If you want that David Mack, you can, but I also want that metal edition that Jay Lee did. You can get both without missing out on the first day. And the other thing that we do is all day one backers are going to get another free. So if you back on the first day anything, we're going to give you a freebie. So we've done that in the last couple of campaigns, which brings people this, well, snap, I'm getting all sorts of exclusives for a great price. And then when it comes in, the quality is through the roof, and then hopefully the writing's all right, you know.
There we go. And they fall in love with the publisher or the creator.
they better do. I've got these gray hairs now, you know.
Yeah.
Well, you're on a cover, so you're official now.
Right.
Maybe I missed it. When is the next Kickstarter kicking off?
So we have the next Kickstarter on Jack Kirby's birthday, August 28th. It's also the birthday of another incredible creator named Sebastian Jones. I don't know if you've heard of him. So it's my birthday event. Me and Jack share the same birthday. Unbelievable. August 28th at 10 a.m. on YouTube Live. We're going to have a party where folks can come just for showing up. You get the Dusu DMX. First appearances, all crazy that have been born from that, funnily enough, are now in development, these big characters and at HBO, so you get the first appearances, you get all that fun stuff. August 28th, just type in niobekickstarter.com or go to strangercomics.com. You'll see the links, or go to @strangercomics on all socials, all the webs. You'll see me talk a lot of crap, and pop by Thursday Live, every Instagram, every Thursday Live, every Instagram.
Everywhere, every Instagram, everywhere, every Thursday, every time. Okay. Matt, I'm gonna look at you now, brother. What does Wicked Monkey, if you can get it together, what does Wicked Monkey have on the horizon?
Ooh, on the horizon. Let's see.
You should tell them our exclusive, Matt. Our exclusive.
Our exclusive, yes. I don't know if I can talk about that.
Tell them.
Are you looking at the lawyers? Is that where you looked?
No, yes. So my lawyer happens to be a Venom statue over in the corner. One of my favorite artists, Zoom, has created some beautiful artwork for an exclusive with Stranger Comics that I cannot wait to share. And on the horizon, though, New York Comic Con in October coming up. I cannot wait. We are going to have some very special birthday surprises for Wonder Woman and our 80th anniversary in October. So I think definitely need to stop by the booth and check us out then. And our neighbors, Stranger Comics, will be right next to us in New York. So everyone that has now fallen in love with Seb can come and visit him and drop off their love letters.
There you go.
You're into swords too, Reggie.
I saw your sword. Grab that one right there, brother.
The live action, we have exclusive live action role playing swords on the Kickstarter, and I'd be remiss to not shout out. Is that the Conan sword you got behind you?
No, that is an IFBB contest win sword, because I'm an IFBB pro. I won that for a bodybuilding competition. So
nice.
It's incredibly flimsy. It's incredibly flimsy. It would not stand up to one sword swing. Trust me when I tell you. Matt, before I let you get off the hook there, brother, where can people find more information about Wicked Monkey? Because we were able to get the URLs and things like that from Sebastian. I want to make sure that people know where they can get additional information about Wicked Monkey on the social medias.
Definitely at Wicked Monkey Comics. for Instagram, and wickedmonkey.co on the web. And right now, too, we've been adding a bunch of new artist interviews. So we try and put a new twist on the artist interview and blog. I believe we have one coming up soon, hopefully with Sebastian. We can get his questions squared away. But yes, definitely check us out on Instagram at Wicked Monkey Comics.
There we go. Gentlemen, I want to thank you both for spending a little bit of time with me to kind of talk about some of the things that you guys are working on, some of the exciting things around Kickstarter and creator-owned property. So I want to thank you for that. I learned a lot. And my hope is that the folks that are out there watching also learn something as well. Again, I want to give a huge shout out to Go Collect for giving me an opportunity to sit down with these two guys to have this conversation. And if you haven't checked Go Collect out, I definitely encourage you to do so. And if you need to reach out to me, you can actually do that on Instagram at Regie Collects, and rest assured that if you send me a message, I will indeed respond.